I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lancaster County Planning Commission of September 13th, 2017. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available at the front of the chambers with the clerk. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. Welcome to our new Planning Commissioner, Christy Joy.
Thank you.
If you are parked in the parking garage across the street to the north, please be sure to pick up a parking coupon on your way out for free parking. And out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, the commissioners and the staff, cellular phone usage is not permitted in these chambers during any portion of this meeting. We will appreciate your cooperation. Please note that the Planning Commission action is final on agenda item 1.1, County Change of Zone 17025, and any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all other items is a recommendation to the City Council or the County Board. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held August 30th, 2017, as revised. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Washington.
Second, Harris.
Second. Okay, please call the roll, Jerry.
Beckius?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Core?
Yes.
Shear?
Yes.
Motion carried 9-0.
The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will ask Jerry to read all of the consent agenda items into the record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Jerry, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
Yes, but before I do that, I want to make a correction. It is not item 1.1 that is final action today. It is actually item 4.1B is scheduled for final action, and that would be appealed before the City Council within 14 days of today's action. So I just wanted to note that correction. Please note that Commissioner Shear has declared a conflict of interest on the only consent agenda item, which is County Change of Zone 17025 from AG Agricultural District and I Industrial District to B Business District on property generally located at the intersection of Highway 2 and Highway 43. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this consent or on this agenda item?
I don't see any.
Okay. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this item? If so, please stand and state that item.
I don't see any.
Move approval. Hove.
Second, Beckius.
Okay, this is for the approval of County Change of Zone 17025. Beckius?
Yes.
Edgerton?
Yes.
Finnegan?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Hove?
Yes.
Joy?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Core.
Yes.
Motion carried 8-0.
There are no requests for deferral, so we will now proceed to public hearings. The staff will make a brief presentation. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal.
Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The timer will go off after 4 minutes. Then you will have 1 minute to wrap up your testimony. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the Commission votes to defer action or continue the public hearing. Jerry, please call the first public hearing item.
Okay, I'll be calling two items that are associated. Item 4.1A is change of zone number 17021 from B3 Commercial District an R6 residential district to B4 Lincoln Center Business District. Item 4.1B is special permit 17033 for a building addition along with expansion of vehicle storage and parking with the reduction of rear yard setback from 28.4 feet to 10 feet, both located generally at 2051 K Street. And again, this is final action on this special permit unless appealed within 14 days to the city council.
Are there any ex parte communications to be closed on these items? Okay, George.
So where we're at, this is K Street here. The property in question encompasses the half block from South 20th to South 21st Street on the south side of K Street. Presently, the eastern two-thirds of the property is Zone B3 and was rezoned in 2006. The roughly one-third part of the property is presently zoned R6. And what's necessitating or causing this request for the change of zone along with the associated special permit is a proposed expansion of the vehicle repair business, which would include an expansion of the building to the west, along with associated parking and vehicle storage expansion to the west. And so in 2006, there was the rezoning for the eastern two-thirds of the property. At the time, the applicant was actually requesting to change the zoning for the entire property from South 20th to South 21st Street. The staff recommendation at the time was to deny the proposal based on the use not conforming to the land use designations in the Downtown Master Plan or the Antelope Valley Redevelopment Plan. Furthermore, Public Works Department at the time identified an access concern with K Street and having the proposed drive access off K Street. Ultimately, the change of zone was approved by the City Council unanimously, but this was with an agreement which prohibited auto sales facilities and car wash uses on the property. It was also with the existing driveway that's out there today, or driveways, I should say. So Public Works had suggested in 2006 one mid-block access to serve the proposed use, as well as the land on the west half of the block face, in addition to the alley off 21st Street. But the applicant felt that they needed the additional driveway at the time. The change of zone before you today does not have an associated zoning agreement, as was the case in 2006, and that is because the conditions of approval are proposed in association with Special Permit 17033. So the prior zoning agreement would be rescinded as part of this change of zone. I might also mention that in 2008, there was kind of a global expansion of the B4 zoning district, and this was sponsored by the city as part of the downtown Antelope Valley revitalization projects, which extended the B4 to the location across the street to the north. And so the special permit, which I will review next, is to allow the expansion of a non-conforming use, which would be the case or necessitated regardless of the zoning, whether it was B3 or B4. So in this case, the B4 designation would be more appropriate given the proximity to the existing B4 district and the redeveloping Telegraph district in the vicinity. As far as the special permit, what happened there, or the reason why a special permit is required for expansion of non-conforming use, is because in 2006, the use was legally established. There was not a provision for a setback of 100 feet from a residential district or zoning. In 2012, the use groups table was modified as part of a zoning ordinance amendment, which rendered the use non-conforming. So that's what necessitates or what renders the use non-standard. I might also point out, along with a special permit, there is a waiver request to reduce the rear yard setback to 10 feet, And that is necessitated by virtue of having the three frontages, K Street, South 20th, and South 21st Street. Previously, when the permit was submitted for the initial project, the property line to the south under the zoning ordinance was treated as a side yard. There is a provision where you have three frontages for the proposal today where it's considered a rear yard. And so the requirement is for a 28.4-foot rear yard setback. The requested waiver is for a 10-foot setback to accommodate the existing building and proposed building addition. A few other points that I'll mention. Landscaping was one of the aspects that was reviewed as part of this proposal. Just generally speaking, B3 zoning or B4 zoning, the landscaping requirements are similar. Due to the non-conforming use in this case, the use of more extensive landscaping is deemed appropriate. Specifically, one of the landscaping conditions is a landscape treatment comparable to what was done on the north side of K Street between South 20th and South 21st Streets. And this would consist of a row of two continuous landscape materials done in a strip in a width area of 8 feet. And this would help blend the property into the area to the north, the redeveloping Telegraph District. One of the conditions as part of the special permit that I'll just state the applicant is in a disagreement with is the condition that the existing western driveway off K Street be removed. This issue was identified during the review of this proposal by the Public Works and Utilities Department. And the reason for this is because this access does not meet spacing requirements of the access management plan. And this was also reviewed by the law department, and the position of law department is that it is reasonable for the city to require this as part of this permit proposal, the removal of this driveway, and it's based out of safety concerns as identified by Public Works Department. So in closing, whether the zoning is B3 or B4, the approval of the special permit would be needed for the expansion of the use. The B4 designation, again, is more appropriate given the proximity of the property to the existing B4 district. And with the additional landscaping, along with street trees, the proposal will not be detrimental to the corridor at the eastern edge of downtown. So I can answer any questions you may have.
Maya?
I was just wondering, you sent out the memorandum with the typos, basically. So that means that both of these would have to be moved as amended by staff? Both of these applications?
Right, I think the memo states hereby amended. And actually, both those uses are kind of encapsulated in the same text provision. It was just unintentional that we had the vehicle sales instead of the vehicle repair in the staff report.
Okay, but if they were moved, they would both need to be moved as amended?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Chris?
George, is there an existing driveway where they're proposing it, or is there?
The existing driveways that are there today are these
Coming
two.
up.
Yeah, right off K Street, and they're proposing the additional new driveway off South 20th Street.
So there is an existing driveway on the north side there?
Correct.
Okay. Plus they have a driveway to the east of that?
Right, there's two existing driveways, concrete driveways.
Okay.
And it looks on that photo that the driveway does connect to their present location right now. Is that correct? The western entrance?
Yes, the applicant can expand further, but I believe the usage for the back part of the property is for employees to park their cars as well as vehicles. The customers use the easternmost driveway for access.
Question, on the western driveway off of Okay. George, what are the lines here that we have encapsulating or circling? We don't have two parcels here. We have one parcel, correct?
Correct, it's one parcel, there's, I believe, 9 or,
Zoning districts on top of it?
correct, that, these dashed lines represent the zoning district
So
differentiation.
the parcel today, the one parcel today has both driveways.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So if you cut off access there, how do they get into that backside?
There would be a new proposed access off South 20th Street on the west side.
Other questions? Okay, thanks, George.
Thank you.
Applicant?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, I'm Mark Hunziker. I'm appearing on behalf of Sierra Investments LLC, doing business as Glenn's Body Shop. Just a quick couple of corrections on George's testimony. In 2006, he stated that Public Works only wanted one access on K Street, and the answer is, the correct information is Public Works wanted 0 access on K Street in 2006. That issue was resolved by the Planning Commission and the City Council unanimously in favor of both the accesses you see there today. Also, I think George said that the law department had taken a position that it was reasonable to require elimination of that access. If that's the case, that's news to me, and I have not seen any sort of report from the law department indicating they've taken a position on it. I think they have said, yes, it's okay for you to require this applicant to request a waiver of the access management policy, which I disagree with, but we're willing to do as we go forward to the City Council. We are here today for kind of a happy occasion. We have a family business that's been in business in Lincoln for 75 years or so that's outgrown its building that it was built 11 years ago. And they need to expand. The plans for this building have been unanimously approved by the Capital Environs Commission already. But the Public Works and Planning Departments apparently don't see this as a happy occasion. After the approval 11 years ago, as George mentioned, the zoning ordinance was amended to make this a non-standard use, and the access management policy was adopted. Not necessarily in close proximity to that timing, but they were both done after Glenn had built this building. The Planning Department and Public Works apparently see this special permit requirement as an opportunity to take advantage of their need or desire to impose conditions which are in excess of what is required by the ordinance, and to go back and relitigate the issue of access. We've agreed to most of their demands. We agreed to B4 zoning. We had originally just proposed to extend the B3 zoning. Planning said, we want it to be B4 just because it cleans up the map a little bit. We said, okay. The landscaping, which you see in the requirements in the conditions of approval, is far in excess of anything that is required either by ordinance or design standards, and we've agreed to do that as well. We've even agreed to install street trees, even though we're not doing a subdivision here, and the subdivision ordinance is the usual source of a requirement for street trees. Even those on the 20th Street side, which weren't required 11 years ago. But access to K Street was an issue that was strongly opposed by Public Works at that time. The City Council unanimously voted to insert that requirement, or that two access points, into the resolution that was before them. And we think that the two access points are justified. The Public Works cites its access management policy, but we've had zero, we believe, we can't absolutely swear to this, but we believe there have been 0 accidents at either of those access points in 11 years. The West Drive serves the garbage and recycling trucks as well as the employees for Glenn's. They have 12 employees. When they finish this expansion, they'll probably have 16 employees. So it's not a lot of trips in and out of there. And the East Drive probably serves an average of 20 cars a day. I know when talking to Alan Hillhouse, who's now the general manager of the operation, he said their absolute busiest day ever came shortly after the big hailstorms a year ago, and they had 75 cars in 8 hours, the whole day, 75 cars. So we understand that if there was a retail use here, or a fast food business, or even an office use, it would generate enough traffic that it might cause some concern as to access to K Street. And in that vein, we have once again tried very hard to address that concern on the part of Public Works by offering to say that if the use of this property ever changes, that the Public Works Department can close both of them. And I've got a condition drafted here for you. Which would do that. And it says, if the use of the property subject to this special permit changes from motorized vehicle repair establishment to another use, the City of Lincoln may require closure of the curb cuts on K Street. And we're willing to sign a letter of acceptance of a special permit with that condition included. With that, I think I will stop and answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
Sure.
This covers both curb cuts on K Street?
Yes, it does.
So the only thing you're objecting to is the west entrance?
Yes, we are agreeing to do the excess landscaping that's been requested. We're willing to install the street trees as requested, but we are objecting to the removal of our western access to K Street. So we're asking that you delete condition 2.3 and add a new one if you want to, that would require us to give up both of those K Street curb cuts if the use of this property changes.
What is the main reason why you don't want to remove the driveway?
Well, the biggest reason is that our recycling and garbage trucks come in back in that area to access the dumpsters that we have. We have one dumpster that's dedicated completely to cardboard. We have another one that has other landfill type material in it. And they need to get in there, and it's awkward for them to come in and use the parking lot as a turnaround area. It's really, and it's also as a convenience to employees to get in and out as well. I mean, we've had this access. It hasn't caused a problem. I think it's a questionable application of the access management policy to go in and try to close existing curb cuts. But I understand that the law department has said that they can do it, or they can at least request it. But we're of the opinion that it should not apply to existing curb cuts. The problem with the access management policy that you've run into before is that it's in a vacuum, in a new area, a newly developing area, it's a good policy. It makes sense. But trying to apply it retroactively to areas that have developed before the policy was developed is really a tough thing. And we really object to the requirement that we have to give up a curb cut just in order to expand a business that happens to be fairly successful. I mean, we had to fight to get this site in the first place. The planning department opposed the zoning. The public works department opposed the access, even though Glenn's was being kicked out of its existing location over in the Antelope Valley project area and had been turned down twice by the planning department for alternative locations, and we were running out of time to get this thing. And so the planning, both the planning commission and the city council at that time, the planning commission recommended approval and the council unanimously approved it.
I have a question about the future site plan. With you mentioned how easy it is for recyclers and garbage haulers to come into that driveway. When the building's expanded and the parking lot is enlarged, will the recycle bins and the garbage stay in the same exact location, or will they also have to be moved?
They will stay where they are.
Okay, the
They'll-
site
they'll-
plan
they'll
looks
s-
as if it's parking for vehicles being worked on.
It is, it does show that, but it is a much larger area than we have today for storage of vehicles being worked on. And we will be able to keep that behind the fence, which I think is an improvement as well.
Thomas?
I can't remember the site prior to 2006 when your client developed it. Could you tell me about the site at that point in time?
It wasn't a very pretty site.
Was it an assemblage of smaller parcels, or what was there prior?
It was an assemblage of smaller parcels, but it was also a couple of very dilapidated old homes that really needed to be removed from that site. And the rest of it was just poorly maintained weeds.
Can you remember by chance how many drives were on K Street at that point in time, if any?
No, I can't remember. I would. Were there four? I know there were some for the existing homes, so we did remove some. The alternative to this use, ironically, would have been to break those lots. I mean, there must be 8 or 9 lots. I can't remember exactly the number along that K Street frontage, and they could have been developed individually and had each one have an access.
Other questions? Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there testimony in support of these applications? And this would be testimony for both items? Sandy, is there testimony in opposition of these items? Okay, are there staff questions? Yes.
Yep.
There are staff questions. George?
So, is there a way we could get the law department's opinion? Or somebody from the law department to comment on the permit?
I think law department, we've discussed the language that's in the conditions. They were fine with it. And respective of Mr. Hunziker's proposed amendment, if the commission so chooses, you could strike condition 2.3. It would not, be agreeable to that, but you could do that and insert or add what was suggested by Mr. Hunziker.
And that would just go with the permit, even if owner changed, and it would still be in there as a condition?
Correct, it would be tied to the use, not the legal ownership.
Do you foresee any issues in a future sale with, is that a standard? It doesn't appear like a standard condition to me, but are there circumstances that you can think of where this is something that you've done before?
I certainly don't want to speak in the capacity as the city attorney. However, it's generally speaking, you look at the use with zoning, and if the use would discontinue or change, you could have a condition or provision to have something happen at that occurrence.
So it's not unprecedented to do
No.
this type of an access management sort of compromise?
It could be done if the commission chooses.
Thank you.
I have a question in the same vein. Does the planning department have the ability to negotiate this kind of clause at the point in which the use changes anyway? This new addition or new clause would not affect the current use. This is about some future use, and I'm assuming the planning would have the ability to negotiate conditions of future uses.
Within the context of the access management policy, I might defer that question to Bob Simmering with the Public Works and Utilities Department.
The question again, please.
Well, I'm looking at this condition and understanding that this condition has nothing to do with the current use, but at the point that a new use came into existence on this site, would we not have the ability to negotiate conditions around access?
Yes, I believe you would.
Okay, so this is not really a necessary condition for future.
The 2.3 condition?
The 2.14 condition, the proposed new condition.
I'd imagine as long as it fits within the context of that zoning, then they could.
Yeah.
I believe that if there's a change in use that requires a change of zoning, that the access management policy would apply.
But if the zoning didn't change and that if it fit within the zoning, then they could do it.
It'd stay.
Right.
Another question along those lines, this may be for you as well, George, I'm not sure, but is the reason that this is not recommended by planning because of possible future use that's higher intensity? Or is it because the use that's being suggested here today is considered too high intensity in terms of access management?
The issue that Public Works is dealing with is the traffic volume on K Street. Latest counts are 16,400, and that was 2015. That area where they're taking the accesses are actually the right turn lane for 21st Street. And typically, we would not have access points in a right turn lane. It causes confusion, congestion, and so some of the issues we deal with in traffic management aren't just accidents, it's the efficient movement of traffic. And taking this access away from K Street certainly improves that efficiency. The other issue I think here is he does have a perfectly usable access proposed on 20th Street, which would access that dumpster or that parking area. So as far as loss of access, there is no damage there. This gives us an opportunity to improve traffic movement on K Street, and I think we're bound by duty to do that whenever we have an opportunity. So in some sense, you look at it, there's 16,500 trips a day there. Are we trading the efficient and safe movement of that traffic for the convenience of getting to a dumpster?
Thank you.
Bob, does the distance from the existing access on K Street and the 20th Street intersection and then the new entrance off of 20th Street, does that distance enough to make a difference with that right turn movement to 21st Street? I mean, you mentioned
The first, or the western access, is in what we'd call the deceleration area of the turn lane, which is a point where people are making their move to get into that lane. So it's a deficiency to have an access point there. It's a deficiency to have the other one there as well. However, it is critical to that business to have one access point there.
But Public Works thinks that the distance between the existing access point and west back to 20th Street, if that existing access point wasn't there, that additional distance to 20th Street is beneficial in
Yes.
terms of those movements.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Is there a charge if they want to go the deviation request through Public Works? Is there a fee to that?
There's not.
Tom might have had his hand up.
Tom, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, Bob, do you have any idea as to how many cars per day actually turn off onto 21st Street? You mentioned 16,000 plus vehicles per day on K. But do we know how many actually turn off onto 21st?
Somebody does. I do not have that with me right now.
Is that on the website? I can pull it
I
up
think it
here.
probably is.
Okay,
You
let
might
me
be
look
able
at
to
that
find
map here real quick.
Traffic count
And
on
then
20th.
my only other question too is, if that access point is stopped, I'm assuming that it's the applicant's responsibility to pay for the closure of that access point and all affiliated.
Rebuilding the
Repair.
curb, yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Bob? Okay, any other staff questions at all? No? Applicant rebuttal, please.
I want to go back to Ms. Washington's question about the future use. I think it is, if you're concerned about the ability to close those curb cuts in the event that use changes, I think it's probably a good idea to adopt this condition, because the zoning, the B4 zoning district is almost a free fire zone in terms of what you can do with it. The uses are not limited much at all. So almost any use you can imagine someone wanting this property for, other than its current use, would be permitted under the B4 zoning district and would not require coming back to the city for any sort of permission other than a building permit, and would make that probability of closing access points much lower. I just wanted to make that point. I think that Tom made a good point about the relevant traffic count here. The 16,000 vehicles per day on K Street, that's quite a few, but it's not overwhelming. I mean, we probably have 12,000 plus on 27th Street, and it's a two-lane street. But the right turn volume at 21st Street, I would bet a lot, is pretty darn low in the afternoon peak hour. I mean, I drive that street regularly, and there's nobody in that right-hand lane. Because, I mean, it's in the mornings when people are going to Lincoln High that you see right turns in that lane. And if there are any other questions of me, I'd try to answer them.
I have a clarifying question for you. You raise a good point about B4 and what's available in B4 district, but I think this is also under the capital environs overlay, and so that limits what's going on in B4. At least it provides some design overlay.
Certainly does do the design overlay, yes.
Dean, you had a question?
Oh, clarifying too, you would still want the access, though, the new one through the parking lot, in addition to the west and.
We would, and it's really kind of ironic. I mean, I wish I had $1 for every time I had heard or read something from the planning department that said, we really don't want to force commercial traffic to go through a residentially zoned area in order to access the business, which is exactly what this elimination of the K Street access would do for all of our employees and our garbage trucks.
Other questions? Don't see any. Okay, ready to entertain a motion, and we'll need to move these separately.
That's correct. We'll need to, well, we have the amendments to the staff reports for both the change of zone and the special permit in terms of the typographical errors. So
So we'll take the change of zone first.
that is correct.
Move approval as amended, Core.
Second, Edgerton.
Discussion?
I think it makes sense to change the zone to match the property that's directly to the north. The applicant is in favor of that. It makes sense from a long-term planning perspective, and it just doesn't seem like there's any reason not to move forward.
Agreed. Please call the roll.
Okay, this is for the approval of changes zone number 17021 from B3 and R6 to B4 on property generally located at 2051 K Street. Staff recommendation is for approval. This is per the revised staff report. Beckius,
Yes.
Edgerton,
Yes.
Finnegan,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hove,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Core,
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Motion carried, 9-0. The next item is special permit number 17033 for a building addition along with expansion of vehicle storage and parking with reduction of rear yard setback from 28.4 feet to 10 feet on property generally located at 2051 K Street. Staff recommendation is for conditional approval. Again, this is final action on this item unless appealed to the city council within 14 days. And there are also revisions to the staff report as distributed.
Move approval as amended by staff. Core.
Second, Harris.
Discussion.
So you're not accepting the proposal that they, okay.
I appreciate, I'll talk about this a bit. I drive by this quite frequently, and I appreciate the added value that this development has created since they've gone in there. It's a nice-looking building, and I think it's really spruced up that area. It's always tough where residential meets commercial, where we have these kind of setbacks that we need to address, and I'm fine with waiving that. But I think as far as that second access point, I'm going to defer to Public Works, and if the applicant wants to pursue that deviation request, I would encourage them to go that way, just because I feel that they're the experts on that. I don't have research into that, so that's kind of why I didn't accept that amendment.
Other discussion?
I would just echo what Tracy said, and I was kind of going back and forth. Good arguments from both sides, but since I'm on the fence, I'm going to default to the experts that do this for a living, and I was swayed by Mr. Simmering's comments about improving the flow on K Street, and it seems like a worthy goal. So I will support the planning's recommendation on this one.
Others?
I support the addition, but I'm gonna vote against this just because I think that there hasn't been a lot of significant traffic in or out of this area, and this is a good business, and they've been following the rules, and I hate to, take away something because they're expanding and they've been following the rules all along. So
I agree with Chris in that I don't think that necessarily an expansion of an existing use that it has only, this access point has only been there for 11 years and now no longer deemed appropriate. I don't know if at this location you're making a heck of a lot of difference by closing off that access point. I think it's more of a matter of principle over practice at this location, honestly. I don't think that you're going to be achieving a whole lot by closing off this access point other than to potentially penalize a business owner that developed in this area long before it was fashionable to do so.
Others? I'm on the fence on this. I agree with all points that have been made so far. I think there's one thing that we haven't talked about, and it is not traffic related, but it's related to the landscape. And I know that the applicant has agreed to abide by the more strict landscape proposal here. But to have that access point, that existing access point, penetrate or bisect that continuous landscape where on the other side of the street, north side, that's continuous. K Street is the entree to Capitol Boulevard. I think there's an aesthetic issue. I agree with Tracy that I would encourage, if there's really a lot of heartburn with this, for the applicant to go ahead and appeal to the council, but I am going to support the motion for that reason, for the more urban form kind of design considerations I think we're looking at here too. Please call the roll.
Beckius,
No.
Edgerton,
No.
Finnegan,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hove,
No?
Joy,
No.
Washington,
No.
Core,
Yes.
Shear.
Yes.
Motion failed 4-5.
So now we need to move for approval
Yes,
with the condition as proposed by
that's correct.
the applicant, as well as the other condition. I'd make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Joy, second?
Okay, discussion about this?
Yes, I have a,
Okay.
because I voted no because I'm not in favor of closing the second K Street, but I'm not in favor of the proposed addition. So I have a third.
Right.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
Well,
Let's hear it, yes.
I don't think we
And
can
what's the
do
point
that.
of
Can
order?
we?
I don't know that we can, I don't know what the
I
process.
think we
what's-
have to follow through with this
Okay.
motion.
We can follow through on the
Discuss.
motion,
We
but
can
I think you
discuss.
can,
We can
I think you can
discuss.
discuss whatever you want,
Yeah,
but
but-
we need to follow through on the motion before we
Yeah.
Okay.
proceed with the
Just don't
third.
make another motion yet.
I won't make another motion yet. I would like to, I would like Chris and Tom to clarify the motion that you're putting on the table. So I know which conditions rise, or which hold, and which are being added, which are being removed.
We're keeping all the conditions, and then we're adding the replacement of this, which essentially says that if the use of the property subject to this special permit changes from motorized vehicle repair establishment to another use, the city of Lincoln may require closure of the curb cuts on K Street.
You're deleting 2.3, right?
Correct.
Right.
Okay, are we clear with that?
It's clear.
Is there any other discussion on this motion? Okay, call the roll.
Okay. Beckius,
Yes.
Edgerton,
Yes.
Finnegan,
Yes.
Harris,
No.
Hove,
Yes?
Joy,
Yes.
Washington,
No.
Core,
Yes.
Shear.
Yes,
Motion carried 7-2.
okay. At this time, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on the agenda may do so. Is there anyone who should speak? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you.